Good morning. In today's video, I'll explain how India's projectionist foreign policy in a once-in-a-century global change has finally hit reality. How India will no longer be able to run with the hares and hunt with the hound. How it will become very difficult for India to be in the Indo-Pacific Quad, BRICS and SCO at the same time. How India will be compelled to choose between being a vassal state of the US-led Indo-Pacific and Quad, or being a steady state and a responsible partner of BRICS and SCO, the two mechanisms that can help improve the lives of India's poor. So the three things I have said here are India's projectionist foreign policy, once-in-a-century global change, and most important, Modi government's foreign policy finally hitting reality. Let me explain all of these in a bit detail. The most prominent example of Modi government's projectionist foreign policy is the G20 tamasha throughout the year of 2023, when External Affairs Minister Jay Shankar successfully managed to project the Prime Minister to the people of India as a towering figure sought by the Western nations or global North. And we were explained this is possible because India, as a founding member of BRICS, is the natural champion or leader of global South nations. Global South, we know, they are the less developed and developing nations of the world. They constitute 80% of the world population. So the narrative that was built up throughout 2023 and it remains today is that India, being a founding member of BRICS, is the only country that can be the bridge between the global South and the global North.
नाजरीन, आज हम देखेंगे किस तरह इंडिया की फॉरेन पॉलिसी है जो साउथ एशिया के बारे में है और किस तरह फॉरेन पॉलिसी चाइना, रशिया और अमेरिका की तरफ इंडिया बना रहा है और फॉरेन पॉलिसी जो है उसकी जो है साउथ एशिया में उसका इम्पैक्ट क्या है इंडिया का, तो जानेंगे.
So the key word is BRICS. But the reality about BRICS is entirely different. And the reality was recently said by the chief advisor to the Brazilian president, Celso Amorim, at the 17th BRICS summit in Brazil, where when asked, he said, BRICS without China is not BRICS. This is the reality. I'll talk about this in a while. Now, India is aware of this reality, that BRICS without China is not BRICS, and this is one of the reasons that the Modi government does not want to have normal relations with China. I've explained more in my earlier video. So let's move on to the next thing, once in a century global change. We are aware that with the rise of China, the geopolitics of the world has shifted to Asia Pacific. We live in a multipolar world where there are three great powers, America, China and Russia, and there are two global governance systems. One governance system is about geopolitics, and as is the norm of geopolitics, it is about balance of power, it is a zero-sum game, it is about absolute security, it is about deglobalization, and the nations or the industrialized nation that follow global geopolitics are 20% of the world population. They are global North, and the leader is America. Now what has happened is, under the Trump presidency, President Trump looks less like President of America and more like Emperor Trump of the world, where every day he issues an executive order bypassing the US Congress, and this has created sufficient instability and panic amongst the global North nations, and it has created enormous unease in India, because India today is not sure about its strategic bilateral relations with America, which actually have been downgraded to a transactional relationship. So there is enough unease in this narrative. On the other side, we have an entirely different global governance system where the entire thinking is predicated on geoeconomics. Geoeconomics is the opposite of geopolitics, because when you talk economics, you are talking about globalization, you are talking of multilateralism, you are talking of free trade, you are talking about indivisible security, a concept that I have explained in my earlier video. And when you talk of trade, you don't talk of any nation being a leader, which is why two great powers which support this geoeconomics narrative, China and Russia, they have never claimed leadership of the global South nations. Now I come to the most important issue, which is, as I said, Modi government's foreign policy hitting reality. We've recently had reports where Russia, especially Russia and China as well, they are asking for a revival of the RIC, which is Russia, India, China trilateral grouping. And especially under Russia's pressure, India has said that it is considering reviving the RIC. Now the problem is that India has used the RIC. RIC is the fountainhead of BRICS. I'll explain that in a while. It has used the RIC on multiple occasions and then discarded it. India does not want RIC to be a permanent feature, because it will mean that India then will be forced to normalize relations with China, something that I have explained India does not want to do at all, as long as the Modi government is in power. So about using the RIC and then discarding it, let me give two prominent examples. One is, please remember the 2018 Wuhan informal summit, which was sought by India after the 2017 Doklam crisis, where things seem to be escalating into a hot war with China. So worried about its implications for the 2019 general election, India sought a summit with China, and therefore we know that Modi and Xi, they met in Wuhan. Within a week of that, India had another informal summit, which was between Modi and President Putin. Why? Because India rightly assessed that Putin is the only leader Xi Jinping will listen to. And therefore, Putin became the guarantor, in a way, of the India-China first informal summit in Wuhan, and so the RIC was revived here and then discarded. After the elections were held, India forgot about it. Once again, after the Galwan killings on the 15th of June 2020, there was worry in the Modi government that things should not become a hot war with China, so RIC was revived. India sought help of Russia. And on the 10th of September 2020, under the rubric of RIC, in Moscow, in the presence of Sergei Lavrov, Wang Yi and Jay Shankar signed a joint statement for peace and tranquility on the line of actual control, and after that, once again, it was forgotten. Now, this time, things will not be like earlier times. And the reason is that if now India revives the RIC, which it will have to live with it for a very long time. I'll explain why. We are aware that the SCO summit is to be held in China on August 31st and September 1, where Prime Minister Modi has no choice but to attend, because India wants China's full support for its own BRICS presidency of 2026, which means that if RIC is revived now and the three leaders, Modi, Putin and Xi, they meet in China at the SCO summit, it cannot be discarded by India. Because as I said, India wants a successful BRICS next year. And asking for full support of China will mean a lot. It will mean, as I say, RIC being there, China asking for normalization of ties with India. which will begin with direct flights between India and China. And I won't be surprised that if India is not to have a disastrous BRICS presidency, which means that if a joint statement has to come out at the end of the BRICS presidency, then both China and Russia may ask for much more throughout the year. And that is, in my assessment, after we have seen the result, the outcome of Operation Sindoor, the two great powers may just about want Pakistan to be included as a BRICS partner country, ironically that too on Indian soil during India's presidency. While all this is happening because India wants a successful BRICS, alongside Emperor Trump will be throwing his tantrums every day. He will be threatening tariff war, he will be threatening downgrading of the bilateral relations with India. So you see, India will find it very, very difficult to live this whole year standing on two stools. It will have to make a choice. So this is hitting reality. Now let me take this conversation further, which is about RIC, as I said, is the basis of BRICS. And when we look at BRICS and we look at SCO, they are the two key mechanisms of this global governance system that believes in geoeconomics. And BRICS and SCO are two sides of the same coin. While the focus, they both share an ethos and a vision. SCO focus is on indivisible security, what I explained in my earlier video, and BRICS focus is on displacement and eventual replacement of the American dollar as the world leading currency. Now, what the advisor to the Brazil president said, that China is at the heart of BRICS. Let me explain that part. You see, as far as RIC is concerned, this was the vision of the Russian leader, Foreign Minister Primikov, who was a grand master at geopolitics. So in the 90s, when the world was unipolar, he could think of making a geopolitical grouping, a counterbalance to American power in the future, getting three big nations, Russia, China and India together. And that is how RIC was conceived. But at this stage, neither China nor India, they came along with it. They paid much attention to this. So the thinking was on geopolitics and of Primikov. Then we know what happened is that in 2001, there was an economist in the Goldman Sachs who added B also to RIC, and it became BRIC, because he was looking at economics, he was looking at four countries with fast growing economies. In the meantime, what was happening is that China also in around 2008 seriously started thinking about reviving the Silk Road. So as we are aware that BRIC then became BRIC, and this happened in 2010 with the addition of South Africa. Now what I want to underline is that from 2010 to 2024, when the next expansion happened of BRICS, and that was during the BRICS presidency in Kazan of Russia, what were the Chinese doing in these 14 years is the interesting part, and that is where they made BRICS. We know in 2013, Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative, which is about physical infrastructure building, which had two components. It had the land belt and it had the maritime road. Then in 2015, Xi Jinping added to that the digital Silk Road, which was about cyberspace, hardware and software connectivity. Then we know that in 2021, the Chinese came up with their Global Development Initiative, which is about sustainable development goals of the United Nations. Then in 2022, they came up with their concept of Global Security Initiative, which is about indivisible security, explaining in details. And in 2023, Xi Jinping spoke about the Global Civilization Initiative. So the point to make is, when you put all these three together, you realize that China is that country which has consolidated the global south, and China is behind the expansion of BRICS and the BRICS Bank, which is the new development bank, and has the statement of Celso Amiron that BRICS without China is not BRICS. So I have already explained how the difficulties the Modi government will face, but as of now, the whole thinking in the Modi government is quite gung-ho. They are very optimistic about the 18th BRICS summit, which will be held in India in 2026, as I said. And given the colonial mindset of India, they already have assumed a leadership role when I said that as far as this grouping is concerned, they do not need a leader. And why I say this is that, speaking in Brazil at the 17th BRICS summit, Prime Minister Modi, he redefined BRICS. BRICS is an acronym. We know it stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. But he says that during India's presidency, it will be called Building Resilience and Innovation for Cooperation and Sustainability. And according to him, the focus will be on three areas, which is sustainable development, reducing the north-south gap, and focus on green development. And he said that we will make this a success like the G20 of 2023. Let us consider all these three things that he has said will be the focus of India. Now, when we talk of sustainable development, see, it is common sense that when you want sustainable development, you want regional cooperation, because sustainable development is about the human factor, about poverty, about education. So what you are looking at is connectivity. The better the regional cooperation is there, everybody gets the fruit of sustainable development. And hence what the Chinese have been saying for a long time, the triangular peace. If South Asia has to progress, it has to develop, then there should be peace between India, China and Pakistan. And this is precisely another reason why perhaps both China and Russia will want Pakistan to be made a BRICS partner country, as I said. So let's move on to the next thing. But India is against this. India doesn't want the regional cooperation. Now the second thing he spoke about, reducing the north-south gap. Now you see, BRICS is about South-South cooperation. It is not about North-South building a bridge there. That is G20, which is entirely different. So here the whole thinking, so when you bring up these things like reduce the North-South gap, it is bringing a colonial mindset, it is bringing the mindset of the global North into global South, which is an entirely different narrative. And the third thing, Prime Minister Modi said the focus will be on green development. Well, everybody is aware, as far as green technology is concerned, China is the leader already of the world. Green technology, we are talking about electric vehicles, we are talking about wind, solar, hydroelectric power, and we are talking about small modular reactors, where once again China is the leader. So, and then Prime Minister talks about the G20. See, G20 was something entirely different. Just as G7 has lost its shine, because G7 was originally about economics. Now it has become a platform for discussing the global geopolitics. Similarly, G20 was about the developing countries and the developed countries working together. It was about globalization at a time when the world was unipolar. Now things have changed entirely. And if India was able to get the joint statement at the end of G20, the reason was entirely different. The reason was that under the Biden administration, as I said, that the global geopolitics had come to Asia Pacific, India had become a country that all the three great powers, they wanted India to be with them, and for different reasons. As far as America was concerned, it wanted at that time India to be the military bulwark against China. As far as Russia and China were concerned, they wanted India to strengthen the RIC, which is at the basis of BRICS, so that the global geopolitical stability comes earliest. Now that narrative has changed entirely. So the point I'm making is that not only has the Modi government hit the reality of the global geopolitics, if it wants to be with BRICS, then it has to, with the global south, then it has to change the mindset also. And there is no way that it can continue to being on standing on two stools. Thank you so much.
नाज़रीन आज आपने देखा किस तरह जो है ना
And then
इंडिया की फॉरेन पॉलिसी जो है वो किस तरह जो है वो उसको किया जा रहा है साउथ एशिया पैसिफिक और किस तरह जियो पॉलिटिक्स जो है वो चाइना रशिया और अमेरिका के दरमियान ब्रिज बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है ब्रिक्स को और किस तरह ब्रिक्स को वो जो है ना वो करना चाह रहे हैं अपने मुताबिक कि वो जो गैप है साउथ और नॉर्थ का उसको जो है ना उस गैप को फिल कर सके तो इंडिया किस तरह जो है 2026 को ब्रिक्स को होस्ट करना चाहता है और उसमें कि क्या क्या चीज़ें जो है वो अब इनकॉर्पोरेट की गई हैं ये ऑल द डिटेल्स जो है बहुत अच्छे तरीके से प्रवीण साहनी ने बयान की हैं जो डिफेंस एक्सपर्ट हैं और जियो पॉलिटिक्स को भी बहुत अच्छी तरह समझते हैं तो अगर आपको ये रिएक्शन पसंद आया तो प्लीज़ चैनल को लाइक शेयर और सब्सक्राइब कीजिए